So what's next? That is the big question. That's, I think, the question that swims around many of our minds when we are getting ready to transition out of the military. Here we've had this orderly life, so to speak, our mission, purpose, identity pretty squared away, but then we get out and we are faced with what is next. So as we know, many of us have struggled with that question. And so we're going to unpack this on that episode of The Military Wire this time. So we're going to talk about what it takes to make your transition a success and essentially land on the answer of what is next. So welcome to this edition of The Military Wire with Mike Schindler. I am, in fact, Mike Schindler, and this is the podcast where we interview some of America's most elite men and women who have served this country in hopes that you, our viewer, get an aha moment that you can apply to your own life. So I want to put a shout out to our sponsors, Bone Frog Cellars and Bone Frog Wine. As you guys know, love these guys, founded by my friend, Lieutenant Commander Tim Cruikshank, former Navy SEAL, 25 years with the teams. Portions of the proceeds from either one of those purchases when they get you in the morning with the coffee or in the evening when you're settling in with that glass of wine, go to help our families of fallen SEALs. So be sure you support those guys. So joining me today, very excited about having David Johnson on The Military Wire, U.S. Army veteran. He's the founder and CEO of Fortis Life Group, which is a full-service employee benefits life insurance for our veterans. We'll dive into that a little bit. He's also the host of the David Johnson Show. So if you have not discovered that show, you need to check him out. He's got some great guests on that show. He's also founded what's called the Promotion Board Media to build a tribe of veteran content creators. So if you are a veteran who is creating content, you're going to want to look David up. So David, welcome to The Military Wire, my friend.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we go into this deep dive of what's next, because I think that's such a big question for many of us, I think you and I have both struggled with that. I think many people know I struggled through 14 jobs before I landed on this is what's next. I want to talk about your transition experience. And before we get to that piece, I really want to dive into, where you served and then how that transition experience was for you.
Sure. So I served, 6 years and about 4 months in the Army. Who's counting? Back in the early days. I joined pre 9/11, and then I was in. Then 9/11 happened, and then in the early days of GWOT and the global war on terrorism. But did do Iraq 3 times. Had my 21st, 22nd, and 23rd birthday in Iraq. So only that theater. No Afghanistan or anything like that. But those were my days.
No kidding. So talk to me. So that's rapid fire. I mean, being a part of those campaigns. Talk to me a little bit about your transition experience, because you and I both know that transition experience, we think we've got the what next thing figured out, but then you transition. How was transition for you? Was it pretty easy?
I would say yes, it was easy because, I just did a little tour and got out. I didn't do the full 20, family, kids, financial commitments. I got out, debt-free, a young 24-year-old or whatever I was. And it was pretty easy in the sense that I used the GI Bill and went to college. And that was all I knew what I was going to do at the time. And that was a pretty easy task. I didn't have to get out and take care of a family simultaneously trying to find a job and or go to school. So the direct answer to your question, that part was easy in the sense of what's my very next direct move. And that was, hey, use the GI Bill, go to college.
Yeah. So that's interesting. Let's unpack that a little bit. So instead of going like, okay, here's my best next 10 years, you essentially said, here's my micro win, which is my next step. So you kept it simple in identifying your next step, and then you proceeded with the next step.
Right. I literally walked into the counselor's office and said, I have the GI Bill, and I had like 20 credits or something like that. 12 or something minimal. And I literally said, with these credits I have, and I'm on the GI Bill, what is the quickest way I could get a degree and graduate college? I didn't know what I wanted to do. It was just so ingrained in my head, hey, use the GI Bill and go to college. So that's what I did. And they said, hey, you can get a degree in this program and it's right here. I'm like, yep, sign me up. That's what I'm doing. And looking back, not sure if that was the best thing to do, but hey, it's actually worked out because I fell in love with what I found my passion later, and that's entrepreneurship, which we could talk about later. But yeah, I'm just like, hey, go to college.
Yeah, no, well, let's dive into that. So you graduated Arizona State University. You jumped into entrepreneurship, as you say, kind of your passion point, and became an overnight success, right? I mean,
hardly. Yeah, right. No
yeah.
overnight success, but I did. Yeah, I'm a 10-year overnight success. That saying, but I fell into entrepreneurship. I was going to be a dentist at one point in time. I shadowed a dentist. I was going to be a pharmacist at one point in time. So from 2006 to 2008, I didn't know what I want to do, but I was going to school. So I was going to school, but I didn't know beyond that what path I wanted to go down. You know, I got a job as a pharmacy technician for like a week, and I thought, oh, maybe I want to be a pharmacist, so this will be a good route. Then I thought, okay, well, maybe I want to be a dentist, and I shadowed a dentist around. That lasted all of 2 hours. I'm like, no, I don't want to do this. And then I met a gentleman my senior year of college who was an entrepreneur, but a very successful one. He was in his 60s, and he was working on a real estate project at the time. And he kind of brought me under his wing and started mentoring me. And that was my first entrance into the business world. I won't even say the word entrepreneurship, but the business world. And that's when I knew, yep, I want to go down this path.
Okay, so this is pretty interesting. So, I mean, most people know my story. We're, struggled through 14 different jobs, right? And I was kind of like you. I would last like, a week at a job sometimes. You'd spend so much time getting hired, and then you're like, yeah, I definitely want to do this. And you're like, I cannot do this. So what was it about entrepreneurship? Because there's so, when we look at the field of veterans, and I think you and I both probably agree on this, we've got skills and training that most Americans do not. So when we get into the service, suddenly, people think that, okay, well, you guys are just rigid. You guys just follow orders. And what we know is, no, we have a mission, and how we accomplish that mission is pretty subjective at times, right? It's not all laid out. You and I both know that, we can have a plan and those plans change, right? So we've got to adapt quickly in order to get the mission. And I think in some ways that probably feeds real well into entrepreneurship, because you've got a plan to grow a business, but how you get there changes rapidly sometimes, right?
So true. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah. So what was it about entrepreneurship? Was it the fact that this feels right? This is like, that pair of socks that you love wearing in the boots, that, yeah, this is a good fit. I mean, what was it about entrepreneurship?
Great question. I don't know, but here's what I do know. If you would have asked me that same question 10 years ago, or not 10 years ago, 2008, whenever that was, I would have probably answered that one way. And if you ask me that question today, I would definitely answer it another way. In 2008, I was naive, couldn't even spell the word entrepreneur, still can't for the record. I have to use autocorrect, but nonetheless, I didn't know what it was. It was just exciting. It's something that excited me. It's something that building your own company, starting your own thing. I know it, from when I got out of the Army in 2006 to when I, kind of became a full-time entrepreneur in 2008 or 9, I didn't really have much excitement. Maybe I latched onto that because, and now I'm just reflecting, you're making me reflect. Maybe I just latched on to entrepreneurship because maybe it gave me meaning at the time. It was exciting. It's something that kept my mind occupied, where I didn't really have that, and no job I was looking into gave me that. So maybe that's why I initially got into it. And then when I started to learn about the mechanics of launching a business, really designing a product or service, really designing how to make that product or service connect with your customers, how to find your customers, and the mechanics of business, then I started to really like it. And now I just can't work for anybody else. I've been my own boss for so long that, I've never even written a resume. Who's going to hire me if I ever had to go out and, apply for a job? Not that I ever would need to or would, but I think it's just kind of grown in me all these years to where we are today, if that makes any kind of sense at all.
Yeah, no, it makes total sense. So talk to me, because there's guys that say, no, I want to start a business, whether they, get involved with Bunker Labs or a number of different opportunities that are out there for guys to, to get involved. What would you say are the 3 qualities that veterans need to possess in order to be successful in entrepreneurship? And then what are the 3 things you really need to pay attention to?
Very, very good question. I might dance. I love talking about this stuff.
Yeah.
Well, there's qualities in business, and I did a podcast on this. If anybody wants to really go listen to it, there are qualities in business that you should have, and that's what I call the skill set side of the house. Just like if you want to be a good accountant or a good attorney or a good mechanic or a good anything, there's that skill set side of the house.
Yeah.
And we could talk for the next 1,300 hours on the skill set side of the house. But you do, if you don't have that, you need to learn it, I think. And there are ways to learn it. Like you said, you mentioned some incubators and whatnot. There are ways that you can go in. They can help you ask the right questions to design your product, help launch your product. That's the skill set side of the house. But there's a whole nother aspect of kind of like the personal side of the house. And I'll give you an example in a second. But what I mean on the personal side of the house is, a lot of times being an entrepreneur means you're your own boss, right? I mean, you could work for a large company and have the entrepreneurial spirit, but at its core, I don't feel that doesn't mean you're an entrepreneur. Now, that's not right or wrong, but being an entrepreneur, you're accepting and taking on a lot of risk.
Yeah.
A lot of times you're on your own. A lot of times you're working with a small team or a team of people you assemble. And there's a personality side to that I think you need to have. And further, it's also defining what type of entrepreneur you want to be. Because, do you want to start a company and take it public for $30 billion? Or do you want to make $250,000 a year and take Fridays off and be your own boss and build up to that? I think it's also defining kind of what you want out of it. I'm not sure if I answered your question or not, or kind of just tap danced around everything.
I think people can weed through it, David. In the sense that when you talk about skills, there's certain things like you better have clarity on where you're going, right? I think that's probably pretty important. At least what your product is and how it solves a problem, right? I mean, would you agree with that? Like, if you start a company, you're like, hey, this is a passion of mine. At least I tell guys, great, I'm glad that's your passion, but does it help people solve problems, and will it drive revenue?
So and that's part of the skill set, 100%. Yeah. That's part of the skill set of being an entrepreneur, designing a business, designing a product or service, its value proposition, who's the customer, is there a fit, all that kind of stuff, 100%.
Yeah. And so on the personal side, I think you're right, is you've got to enjoy risk. I think, I'm looking at the sign behind you. I think it says, it says take risk, right? Yeah, I love that. Or lose the chance. It's so true is, in the military, we're so used to those, paychecks, right? They're coming, right? Don't have to worry about it. Just do the job, show up, paycheck will hit the bank account, you're good, right? In business, I mean, talk to me a little bit about that. So you start your company and you're like, great, I get paid every 2 weeks. Is that how it worked for you?
No, I was in business full-time, as in full-time, day in, day out for 3 years before I made my first dime in revenue. I had a recurring business model at the time. It was an $18 a month sale. I think it was $18 a month sale. And I made my first sale after 3 years in business. That's 3 years of struggling on every financial, emotional, mental front you can even imagine. And I know you can imagine. But yeah, and I was trying to do something grandiose. So it's also, there's different categories, like I said, and that's back to the personality. I back then was trying to do a massive online tech play, and we thought we were going to be a big deal. That's a lot different than I'm going to open up a corner laundromat, which I still respect and I still consider that an entrepreneur. It's just a different style business. But you got to be able, on any front, you have to be able to accept the risk, because there's a lot of risk that comes with it. Yeah,
it's so true. So talk to me a little bit about the what next piece. You talk about how you eventually landed on it. How did you land on what's next? How did you find it? Was it just trial and error and suddenly you went, oh man, this fits? Or was there some strategy that you used? How did you land on the what's next?
Yeah, well, like I said, the college thing was easy,
Yeah.
but because I had the GI Bill and the money, and I had a little bit of a scholarship, so college was paid for. Thank the heavens. And my senior year of college, came across this guy who was the entrepreneur. Like I said, he mentored me, and I didn't have an idea at the time. I was kind of being mentored under him and just kind of following him around. And then around 2009 or 10, I had an idea. Like, it just hit me one night. I had an idea for a business. What it is irrelevant, and we can go into, but it's irrelevant. But just being in those entrepreneurial circles and thinking like that, and I was consuming, Entrepreneur Magazine and reading articles about entrepreneurs and what's hot now and what are the trends in tech and this and that. And I was just all consumed in that world. So that helped me kind of go down that path. And then, 2009 or 10, I had an idea for a company with no experience of starting one or anything like that. And I'm like, screw it, let's go do it. And it was a colossal failure. It was a big failure, a $2.1 million fail. At our peak, we were valued 2.3 or 2.2 million, I forget. And ultimately, the company failed. I shut it down in September of 2012. But that was my launching pad into business and entrepreneurship. I kind of look at that failure as the prerequisite. And I literally woke up the next day and a million lessons hit me. Yep, shouldn't have done that. Shouldn't have hired that person. Well, that person should have been fired. He was making way too much. Product didn't fit this. Engineering wasn't doing it right. And a million lessons just hit me overnight.
No kidding. Why, so that a $2.1 million fail it certainly devastate people. And it sounds like you looked at that and went, okay, that was a growth moment. Press on, move forward, launched into your new business. You're collaborating, or you're building this, what's called the Promotion Board Media. I want to talk a little bit about that. Talk to us about what the purpose of that is and really the intent behind it.
So Promotion Board Media actually came later. It's the Fortis Life Group which was the What's Next came after that. But Promotion Board Media. I started, I guess almost 2 years ago now. Right when quarantine was really hitting, I think it was March of 2020. Yeah. I actually started it that month, and it launched with a podcast that I have, the David Johnson Show. It's a pure passion project. When I'm actually talking about passion projects, we're just now starting to wrap the model around it, as a matter of fact. But it started as sort of my way of giving back, as silly as that may sound, and doing the podcast that I do. It's something that I just thoroughly love and enjoy. And it's my way of giving back. And we're starting to build more people under us, all veterans that are just creating content online, mainly in the podcast space.
It's so cool. So it's like a one-stop shop. Like, if you want to listen to some of the greatest, right, you could go to the Promotion Board and find content there that will probably be relevant to you.
Correct.
Yeah, no, I think that's awesome. So the Fortis Life Group, what is that about? So that not only became a passion project for you, but a growing, thriving business. So what is that all about?
So I've been in the insurance industry since 2012, almost end of 12, early 13. And, but insurance really it's a fascinating industry. Most people don't think about, insurance. I think, insurance is boring, but I started out in the employee benefits space. So I would go into companies and structure their benefits. Most Americans get their health insurance from their employer. Yeah. Behind the scenes on that is a me of the world, an employee benefit broker. And you really got to go in and understand how healthcare is billed, how healthcare is paid for, and structure it financially. I mean, statistically speaking, healthcare is the top 3 most expensive line items for a company. Usually payroll is number 1. Some other stuff, and then healthcare. And that has to be structured properly. The employee, they just know, hey, I get an insurance card in the mail and I have health insurance. Yeah. But behind the scenes on that is an employee benefit broker. So that's what I've been doing since 2013. I really love it, and expanded all my services to just be kind of like a full stop, insurance agency. And that's Fortis Life Group. And we cater to veterans, military spouses, and veteran-owned businesses.
Yeah. So when you say cater to them, what does that mean, David? Does that mean a veteran can reach out to you and you can help them with the insurance piece, or what exactly does that mean?
Yes, absolutely. We That's our target market. We only talk to them, cater to them, and all of our insurance carriers like Chubb and some of the top insurance carriers in the world are backing us and underwriting our products. They understand our market. They understand the need of what we're doing. So we've put together this kind of, I hate to say a miniature USAA because that just sounds cheesy, but a lot, that's in essence, that's kind of what we're doing. But we don't do the car insurance or anything like that. We do life, health, businesses, a lot of stuff that pays you money if you get sick or ill. A lot of people don't know, like a critical illness policy, for approximately $20 a month. If you get cancer, you can get a $40,000 check in your pocket. A lot of people don't know this kind of stuff. So we're educating them on the different types of insurances as well in that sector.
No kidding. Wow. That is really cool. And I think that's so important because I remember a friend of mine, she retired out as a colonel, and I looked at her and I said, boy, you got to be totally excited about your transition. She looked at me, she said, Mike, I don't even know how to find a dentist.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know how to find insurance. I don't know how to find any of this stuff. Right. And I think, part of that military transition is understanding what are the resources, who are the people, what are the communities that are available, right, to help that transition experience be even more successful. So
sure.
I don't think people have to trip on their tail, getting there, especially when there's resources available. So David, how do people find you? Like if they want to learn more, how do they find you?
Yeah, well, you could check out the podcast is picking up some steam on all platforms. We just passed 800,000 views, downloads on all platforms. We're on 17 different platforms at, excuse me, The David Johnson Show, YouTube being our most popular, YouTube at The David Johnson Show. And then reach out. Would love to talk to anybody doing anything in the veteran space and creating content, be it podcasting, documentaries. I love that space. We have a lot of resources that we can help out with and things of that nature. And then on the insurance side, FortisLifeGroup.com. And I'm David at FortisLifeGroup.com. And feel free to reach out. And I love chatting with anybody.
David, well, thank you. I so appreciate this. So needed, I believe. So again, thank you for being on the Military Wire. Thanks for helping us answer that question. What next? How to get there? I think it's so important. And in many ways, it's trial and error, but you landed and you're doing great work. So bravo Zulu to you on that.
Well, appreciate the time today, and you're doing great things. It's an honor to have met you a little while back, and I look forward to getting to know you more.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, David. Thank you.
Bye.